Make it through the code? Did anybody make it through the code? How was it? A lot of traffic? Oh, awesome. Good day. Bear Deer enter. All right, so we are in our afternoon session of the 2025 TFAA. And we have with us Reba Meiller, noted author, please buy her books. And then if you need any conversation or information, I would talk to her and see if she can help you out, point in the right direction. But I'm going to get out of here because she's got a limited time today. So here we go.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay? All right? Good. All right. Gary, is it okay with you if I stand like this? Will you get mad at me? Because I won't be able to see the screen too. Okay? All right. Okay, he called me Reba Meiller, which is true. My mother was Margaret Whitehead Ryan, and my grandmother was Meldana Lucinda Tipton. And you're going to see her on the screen here in a minute, at least her name. My mother Margaret was the genealogist, not me. I love the facts and the figures, but I like the stories better, just like Missy back there. She sort of likes the facts and figures, but she likes the stories too. So, let's get started. Why would our Tiptons, am I too loud? No? Okay. Why would our Tiptons be interested in the Little River Lumber Company and Railroad? If you don't know the history of the area and the people who lived in it, then you wouldn't have a reason to suspect our family was involved. We weren't at first, but soon we had an important part. Do I need to move this outside? So it won't spit at me? Is that better? You can still hear? Okay, good. All right. This is Noah Harrison Tipton, who was born in Cades Cove. He moved from there to Happy Valley and moved later to Chihuahua when my grandmother was about 5 years old. All the children were born in Cades Cove except Joseph, the last one on the bottom. They were already out of there by that. We're going to be talking about Doc Harvey, Noah Harrison Jr. We'll say a little word about Harriet. Then I already told you my grandmother. She was the middle of 9 children. And then I mentioned him and Marvin Lee. The rest of them, well, they were all siblings, but not as many of those were involved in what we're going to be talking about. Noah's push for his children was for them to attend school and get an education. All of his boys went to school in Maryland, at the Maryland Polytechnic Institute, and boarded close to the school. His daughters were supposed to go at least through the 8th grade, but most were married before they were 17, except his youngest, Josie Marie. Noah insisted, this is Noah, and Nancy Suzanne LeQuire. Nancy was from the Cove. Isaac LeQuire was her father. This is their home. The front of it, the screened-in area up at Chihuahua. Anyway, Noah insisted that Josie Marie attend her last year at college before she married Fred Hummel, who'd come down to visit the area from New York. So she graduated from Maryland College. She was the only one of the girls to do that. The preparatory school for boys gave classes for going into banking or management positions and so on. One of the sisters, Harriet Naomi Tipton, went briefly to Maryland to keep house for her brothers. She didn't last long. She came back and got married. She couldn't handle it. The boys worked their way up to important positions in Blount County. ML, or Marty Lee, became president of Blount National Bank. This is important because he would become the banker for W.B. Townsend. His brother, Noah H., right there, Noah H. was the Blount County Register of Deeds at one time. M.A., Marty, or Marion, was a well-known contractor here. He built large buildings, even built some of the buildings on the campus of the University of Tennessee. Marty Lee was the banker. Noah Harrison was the Register of Deeds. So let me get that messed all up. Okay. Now, D.H. or Doc Harvey, the oldest boy in the family, was the last manager of the Little River Lumber Company and Railroad. He was also the mayor of Townsend for many years. All right, first let's talk about the Little River Lumber Company. Since I'm now 82, born in 1942, I can remember the last gasp of the lumber company. The office was still in existence when I was born. It may have been the mayor's office too, since D.H. was the mayor here. This is just one picture. There are more pictures if you want to go into and look at them. This was the first lumber company that had a bandsaw to cut the lumber. Most of them had the big saws, but this had two bandsaws, like you would have at home, only big enough to cut a humongous log. In this area, there wasn't any more like that. Evidently, my grandmother had some construction job she needed done, and her brother had the lumber she needed. She had called him on her 240 phone to tell him my grandfather was coming in his truck to get the needed items. My grandfather got his hat, and we went outside to travel to Townsend. I was his pet, and he was my best buddy. I loved him to pieces. The trip to Townsend didn't take long because they lived on the Tuckaleasie Pike. I'll show you a map of that shortly. And we arrived at a small white frame building in the middle of town. I can remember walking in and out. It's not too far from here. I think it's maybe about across the road there. I don't think it's there anymore. Last time I looked, I didn't see it. I remember going in the door, age maybe 3, can you believe it, and being greeted by Uncle Doc. Also, there was the financial guy, plus the secretary. Uncle Doc was a superintendent or manager at that point in time. He got up from his desk and came to greet me and my grandfather. I loved his deep, resonant voice and the quarters he gave each of his young relatives. If you saw him, he'd give you a quarter. We always grinned too, I can tell you that. My papa drove his truck and Uncle Doc drove his car through the open warehouse shelves. I know I was little, but these buildings were huge, and the wood was graded into kinds, lengths, and widths. Why and how did the Little River Lumber Company come into existence? There were actually 2 reasons. Number 1, the forests of the Northeast were being depleted, and the large companies were looking for forests with lots of mature trees. The companies in Clearfield, Pennsylvania, had checked out several areas here. The investors, Asbury Lee, William McCormick, William Wrigley, and Joe Dickey sent W.B. to Townsend to the Smoky Mountains to cruise the timber. Townsend already had experience in setting up timbering operations and everything that went with it, including one in Kentucky. Now, Little River wasn't the only lumber company around. There were others. The Champion Fiber Company actually went as far as Mount LeConte. See that it there? And if you ever went over through, Canton, North Carolina, it was sticky because they did fiber to make paper. And boy, you knew if the wind was blowing the right way, maybe you wouldn't have a problem. But usually it wasn't. Down below is the Ritter Lumber Company and the Montville Lumber Company, and you just keep going on south. And Chilhowie, right there is a place we need to remember. I don't know what that is there, but there's another Chilhowie there. You see, there's Sevierville and Pigeon Forge, and they weren't anything then. They might have been like we call a wide place in the road, but that was about it. And most likely a dirt or gravel road into them. Evidently, Townsend already had experience in setting up timbering operations and everything that went with it, including, like I said, one in Kentucky. And evidently, when he was sent down here in the wintertime, on his visit to the mountains, he and those with him were caught in a terrible snowstorm. Luckily, they survived. And by soon, 1901, the investors had bought over 75,000 acres of mountainous timber on the Little River and its tributaries. The stream went to Elkmont, to the base of Clingman's Stone. That's Mount McCon, right there is Clingman's Stone. And the river went down through here. There's Cade's Cove. Well, I've got the map, I'll show you. In 1903, Townsend moved his family into a house in Townsend. Over the next 39 years, he built 150 miles of railroad, cut 560 million board feet of timber, which, if stacked end to end, would go to California and back. He built the city of Townsend, including a movie theater, church, barber shop, doctor's office, restaurants, and grocery, plus other retailers. These were string houses, they were called, that the employees worked in, who worked for the company. They could be put in sections on a railroad car and transferred to wherever they were using. There's no indication. The last one was a trestle. There's 110. One of the engines that was used. There was 3 engines used out here. There they are. Several of them on the one. Now the shade was the one they used the most. It did a really good job. And if you go over to the Little River Lumber Company today, you're going to see that train. It's over there. That's the one that's sitting over there now. How would you like to do that? A swinging bridge for a train? I don't think so. Whew. And then here the train is pulling a load of the logs up the hill. And they had to put sand on the train. There's one of the skidders that, the loaders that they used to load the logs. They have one of those over at the lumber company too. They'd be glad for you to come over there because I went over there the other day just to see how it was going. And the building you go in is the actual depot that was down at Walton. They moved it, the man who owned it down there, and they moved it.
Carol, that was my grandfather.
Really? The one that
The depot.
let them do it. Well, great for that, Miss. I didn't know it. Go ahead. Yeah. Now, just remember, all these became roads. All right, and that was one of the trestles there. And you can see there's people on it. Those are benches that they could sit on and ride up through there. The timber is pretty much gone. You're welcome to ask questions if you want to while I'm doing this. It's no problem. And Missy, you're welcome, sure. You. There's no indication that he gouged his workers, although they were paid in Dougaloo or company money, which was redeemable only at the company store. Now, this was the camp store at Elkhorn. Pretty big looking store, if you ask me. Notice the train tracks where they would divert the train. You'll see some of those down at the lumber company down there. Without the Little River Lumber Company and the railroad, the people of the area and the visitors would never have been able to visit the area and experience its beauty. So because they opened it up, that gave some people the idea of making this into a national park. This was the same with all the lumber companies in the Appalachians, and there are several, there they are again. In 1910, county decided to sell some of the property. In Elkhorn, to some wealthy Knoxville businessmen, they built the Appalachian Clubhouse and several cottages. That's the depot for the clubhouses up there. 2 years later, 65 acres were sold to 3 men from Knoxville who built the Wonderland Hotel at Elkhorn. They eventually sold it back to the first people, the Appalachian people who came in there. When this happened, these hotels were built. It necessitated a shorter route from Knoxville through Sevierville and Gatlinburg if you were going by car. Without the lumber company and the scenic trip into the mountains on the company train, there would be no national park because it was long, treacherous, and snaky high into the mountains. That was Elkhorn now. It wasn't a small place. There's nothing up there now, hardly. There's a camping area now, but all the buildings are pretty much gone. I don't know, did they finally tear the Wonderland Hotel down?
Yeah.
That's what
But
I
there's
thought.
houses that are
There's still
still,
logging houses.
yeah, there's still houses up there.
Oh, the ones that the people built, or
Yeah.
themselves, individual houses, yeah. Yeah, you can still do that. And that's the post office again there. Well, the other one was the trading post, that's the post office. It looks like they're having fun, doesn't it? The second reason for a timber cutting company in the area was a tanning operation in the vicinity of Wallen. Another man from Pennsylvania, J.W. Fisher, and his partners started the Schlosser Leather Company. Need to go on. There's Tremont. Now, guess what that was? Yep, and something else. A movie theater. They actually did movies. They had church, they had school, and movies in this building. The tannery opened before the turn of the century with its corporate headquarters named Walton and England Leather Company, Mr. Jim. Hence the name Wallen for the town. The tanning market for the expanding operation soon died out, and at least the small providers couldn't keep up. Therefore, to tan the multitude of hides coming into the facility, another source of bark was needed. Fisher and Townsend got together and solved the problem. Tanning hides for leather involved wooling them in the tanning bark. The leather company was processing about 300 hides a day, and my guess is some of them were coming from here. They were supplied by the settlers in the area, and some were shipped into the region. The leather company had extended a railroad spur from Maryville to easily receive and ship their finished goods to the national market. Now let's switch to the railroad. No pun intended. What was it like to get to Tuckaleechee Cove before the railroad? In the early 1920s, the actual road to Chihuahua was a one-lane rock and dirt pothole road on the other side of the river from where we are sitting. Okay, let's drive from Maryville in the early 1900s. I guess I need the map if it's next, hopefully, yeah, there we go. All right. I remember, I don't know if this was only road when yeah, it was. This is the way I came from Maryville, right here. The red is the Tuckalichy Pike. Can you see it okay? This is as good as we can get it. There's the original. You're welcome to come up and look at it when you get time if you need to do that. All right, I'm going from Maryville by car to Townsend. This is Townsend right here. Starting Maryville, past the Southern Depot, past Maryville College, and at a mortuary called Smith's Mortuary. That's where you would have turned off, and you follow this road down through here. My grandmother and grandfather, the last place they lived was about right in there. And then we would go on out. We would come, and here's Hubbard. You can't get across this ditch now, but it's still there. It was one lane, and you went across. Okay. Then you would travel this way. You would come to Kohler's Bridge. Gamble's Fort was right in here. And then you cross the one-lane bridge, which was called Kohler's Bridge, and you follow the river. Here, the river went down through here, and then it really made a sharper cut back here, heading toward Knoxville, Stock Creek, Knoxville, and all of that. My grandmother and grandfather lived out in Illinois for a while. He was a blacksmith. Now, Kohler's Bridge, we come on, and we follow the river. The blue line is the river, all the way up to Walnut. The only reason to get across the river here was to the depot there, where Schlosser got their supplies and everything. Okay, now the road actually veers down the river here and goes around a really high hill. Now there's a bunch of houses built in here, and then it comes back and it follows the river on up to Townsend. This will be Wallen. The Schlosser Leather Company was right in here. Wallen High School was here. There was a road up through there, and it went on to, it went over to Sevierville and
Walden's Creek.
Walden's Creek. Yep, another Walden's Creek. Not the one we're thinking about though. Okay, so then we come on here and follow the river on up to, there was a swinging bridge in here that you could cross the river, another place, because over in this area, there were places where people built houses and you couldn't get over there without a swinging bridge. There was no way. Swim the river and climb up a big steep hill. Okay, so we got another, we're coming on here, red line, and we get up here to Kendall Springs Hotel. Well, the only way to get across there was another swinging bridge. But there, you didn't necessarily have to carry your luggage, because there would be a porter coming from here, maybe to get your luggage, but you had to park over here. So the only way to get across there was the swinging bridge. And then on up to Kensal Springs was another one-lane bridge. You passed it down here. It's now a covered bridge. It wasn't that way originally. So you come over, and then here is Townsend. Here's the lumber company and everything. Now, let's do the river. I talked to you a little about that. This would be Davis Ford. It actually was a sharp thing here. Davis Ford here to get across, and then it would go under Kohler's Bridge. It would come up to here in the lowest point, and basically that's what all it did up here. And then of course it went to the base of Cleveland Stone. Started right in there someplace. And they actually lumbered a lot of that up through there when they were doing the lumbering. The new road, the one you came up now, They took the railroad out, they made this, they got rid of this part and made it a straight shot. You didn't get to go across the bridge, you went on this way, and you followed the railroad, which was on the side of the river that we're standing on now. Any questions on that? No? Okay. Could you go back down there and do it? All right. In the early 1920s, the actual road to Tuckaleechee Cove was called the Tuckaleechee Pike, and it was a one-lane rock and dirt road, potholed, and on the other side of the river from where we're sitting. Okay, we did the drive. Originally, the Tuckaleechee Pike, as already stated, was rock, but curvy and dusty. Coming from Maryville, you pass, well, there's no need in me going through that again. Like that. With the arrival of the lumber company and the railroad, the dirt road to Townsend changed little. If you drove a car, you still traveled the same road from Maryville to Townsend. Where needed, there were swinging bridges you could walk across the river into the coves. There's one right there. I remember another one, must have been was it north of Wallen? Yes, because one day we were driving up to Townsend because there was a big fire on the mountain. And we stopped. We saw my uncle's car parked there and got out, and he had tears in his eyes because somebody had set fire to his property. Mm-hmm. And the swinging bridge, the concrete abutment was there, but the swinging bridge was gone by that time. So anyway, but with the coming of the Little River Lumber Company, now you could take the railroad, which opened the area up to many possibilities. So you could take the train and go to the Wonderland Hotel or to Kensal Springs and get out. And a lot of people would come from Knoxville, and over in this area there were houses all along, and they would spend the summer there. And the husband would come up on the weekends. They did that a lot. I've already talked to you about how the train got to here. If you know where to go, you can find evidence of the train's grade even now. We had bought property, I'll do it on this one, right here. That's Culver's Bridge. And we have bought property right here on this side. And right here, I could stand on the railroad grade. And then eventually we bought some property up about, I'd say it was probably, there's a swinging bridge. Would have been north of that. Anyway, where it was, you could walk across the river and see the bed where they had graded the new road over the top of it. So you can get to it in more than one place now if you know where to go. This was when Mineral Springs hotels were being built in our area of the mountains. There were a lot of them around here. The people came from all over the east to swim in these waters. This necessitated a stop at Mineral Springs Hotel, where you will still find the swinging bridge down there. It's a real estate office over there now. At one time, if you wanted your car nearby, you parked on the old road and pulled your luggage across the bridge, or a porter came to help. At Townsend, can you still hear me? Okay? Can you hear me? At Townsend, the train shaped to the depot, and you got off. A livery stable nearby might provide you with a horse or buggy to help you get to your destination. Only the railroad went on this side of the river where we are now. Appalachia Road crossed at the one-lane covered bridge, which is now a tourist attraction. Several types of trains were used in the lumbering operation, but the shade locomotives, which this is one of them, were the best on the steeper grades. Mounted engines were better on sharper curves. Many bridges and trestles were necessary to haul logs from the mountains. Dynamite was necessary to blast away rock so grades could be established. Once clear cutting was finished, the track and the portable houses were removed to the next timber cutting area. Workers lived in temporary houses called string houses, which could be loaded intact onto flatbed cars and moved to the new location. Once the lumber company stopped cutting timber and closed its operations, the Little River Lumber Company cut about, the railroad track was taken up and a road from Maryville replaced the one on this side of the road where we sit now. The last year the company cut timber was 1939, and according to D.H. Tipton's record, the Little River Lumber Company cut about 50% hemlock, the rest was hardwood. Some of the different kinds of wood made its way to Europe, especially cherry, locust, and walnut. M.L. Tipton, all right, this is M.L. here, was the executor of Mr. Townsend's will. He was also his banker. They were friends who socialized together in Maryville. This is D.H. again here in the middle. And then Joe Murphy was the accountant. He was actually, one time I think, the manager of the mill also. But in the end, he was the accountant. Without the cooperation of the Tiptons, Townsends, and Fishers, who opened the area up to settlers and so on, building this area would have been many years in the making. If you go to Grandview Cemetery off the old road of Appalachia Pike in Maryville, you will find that even in death, these men aren't separated. They are buried in the same area as the Chihuahua Tiptons, Noah and his family. W.B. Townsend was 81 when he died in February of 1936. So after that, there, wasn't too long. 1939 was the last day of the logging operation. And of course, Missy has already talked about William Fighton Millie, and he was probably one of the ones who was responsible for some of the settlers in the area, because I'm sure some of them that came in with him probably worked at the mill. Okay, any questions at the end of that?
Carol, the railroad actually went in to close to Case Cove at Creek Gap. And the people in Case Cove would have to they could cut their own wood.
Yes, they could.
And they'd trolley it down to get on the railroad down at Creek Gap and then bring it back.
Yeah.
So it really did go up that far, but
I've never heard much about that at all. I mean, Tremont was it. And they got in and out of the Case Cove over a schoolhouse gap. Remember that? And Rich Mountain. Rich Mountain was probably the first place they got in.
well, the railroad was just for
Yeah,
people to ride.
it was just
to
for that.
transport the
Yeah,
logs.
okay. Anybody else? Go ahead. All right. Well, we'll say we did good.